Everyone. As mentioned, my name is Amy O'Brien, and just to follow up on that introduction, as mentioned, I'm Head of Business Development at Fulham Football Club Foundation, not the club, and in addition to that, I also work at a company called 3Globe, which is ultimately a social purpose organization working with professional athletes in order to help them achieve their social purpose aims. I should go into my presentation as a starting point. How about that? So today I want to explore with you this idea of leveraging the social-driven or the purpose-driven player. As part of my remit at Fulham Football Club, I have income generation responsibilities, I have partnerships and communications, but another part of my role is to engage players in community, and that could be through a one-off player appearance, or it could be through a more formal ambassador role. And leveraging the purpose-driven player is a really interesting and not that often talked about concept. And so today, to explore that, I want us to first go through and look at actually what does it mean to be purpose-driven, what are the impacts on achievement, and ultimately how can we as an ecosystem leverage those purpose-driven players in order to add value to the game. And when we think of achievement versus fulfillment, I would say more often than not, the lines are probably blurred. And what I want you to do is to just take a second. I have only 8 minutes, but I'm going to give you 20 seconds or so of that, to think back to a time, perhaps the last time, when you felt a sense of achievement. What is it that you were doing? Perhaps it was a career progression. If you are a coach, it might have been that you earned your next coaching badge. Or perhaps it was some other type of accomplishment in your professional career. Now I want you to take a moment and think about when you last felt a sense of achievement and what you were doing during that time. And when you think about this idea of fulfillment, how does that differ from what you felt when you felt a sense of achievement? The primary difference between the two is ultimately purpose. And it's probably much easier for you to come up with an instance where you felt a sense of achievement. And really that's because we are all a product of our environment, of course, we know that. And we are all in an achievement culture, a culture really that is driven by a generation of strivers like us who are looking to tick that next box in our professional careers. On the flip side to that, we have the purpose economy. And in the purpose economy, this is all about doing, sorry, I'm just gonna open that. In the purpose economy, this is all about being driven by the why. So what is your why? Think about that as we go through this. And there are some undeniable truths about being in a purpose-driven economy. A purpose-driven player has increased perspective, so they can deal with setbacks better and more efficiently. Being purpose-driven also contributes to a higher sense of achievement, and it also contributes to overall well-being, happiness, and contentment. And yet, purpose activities, such as those like having a player go out into the community, are often seen as distractions. They're considered to be things that should be done only in small amounts, so as not to distract or detract from the footballing priorities. And when players do decide to speak out or act in a way that supports a particular cause that they are passionate about, everyone always has something to say. So who is familiar? I'm sure you're all on social media. Show of hands if you are on social media. Do these things look familiar to you? Comments like players should just stick to playing, stick to the sport. So my challenge for us is how do we, as a football ecosystem, leverage the purpose-driven player? How do we use their interests, passions, and desires for social good to add value to the game? And this is a challenge that I face on a regular basis as an individual who manages players as well. And alongside this, how do we help them to create their own individual brands? How do we help to communicate the stories and the messages that they are presenting? And how do we use that to ultimately captivate audiences? Ultimately, when it comes down to it, football and any other professional sport is a league of individual players. Although they come together as a collective, without those individuals, the sport itself does not exist. And perhaps one of the greatest examples of how we can use the purpose-driven player to add value to the game, to your club, to your league, and your industry as a whole is LeBron James. LeBron James is a perfect example of how you can carve out a niche brand, not only as one of the best professional basketball players of all time, but in addition to that, being one of the most philanthropic and charitable players. And so the opportunity really exists for all players who have any type of social purpose. What we can do is help to create those identities. So we look at an individual and we say, this is what they're passionate about. How do we help turn that into an authentic identity and a personality that resonates with people? From there, over time, that individual personality will morph into a brand. And from that brand, we can carve out commercial assets. Ultimately, those commercial assets will help add value and drive revenue into the game, whether it be men's or women's football. And from there, we can use that to help build and engage an audience. So I challenge you, and I implore you to, as you go about your day-to-day, and for many who are coaches, I imagine that at some point in your coaching career, you will have seen some of these, social purpose or community activities as in opposition to what you are trying to achieve as a coach. Rather than that, I say we flip it on its head and let's see how we can actually incorporate this into the brand of the individual, the team, and the overall game.